All right, good morning, everyone. So it's good to have you over here. Good morning to all of you with us over the internet. It's good to be here another Sunday. We can all together learn a little bit, study a little bit of the gospel of our Master Jesus. But as always, before we start our lecture, today going to be a lecture by our friend Marco. We're going to be talking about mediumship, understanding facts and challenges, right? But before we start that, we are going to do our initial reading and our initial prayer. And Tiago is going to help us with our initial reading today.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So the message today comes from the book Happy Life by the spirit Joana de Angelis and psychography of Divaldo Pereira. The message says like this: calm the anxieties of your heart. What you have not yet achieved is on the way. Do not suffer beforehand or let yourself get into depressed states because of things that certainly are not needed. Lack can provide us with the resources to appreciate people and things. The person who enjoys benefits certainly underestimates what he possesses. Learn to live with the scarcity and loneliness, and you will know how to avoid the drunkenness of the senses, the voluptuousness of sensuality, and over-possessiveness. You are what you accomplish, and not what you have, or the persons you meet. So with that, let's us close our eyes and elevate our thoughts to God, and let us pray. Dear God, dear mercy Jesus, thank you for this opportunity to be here on this Sunday, gather here to listen and study a little bit more about your word and about your clarifications to achieve a better life and for us to evolve as spirits. May your good spirits illuminate us on this task, and may bless our friend Marco who will deliver the lecture today. May we all be involved by your love and the charity that you taught us. Thanks so much, and so be it.
So be
All right, thank you all. Good morning. So today we're going to talk about mediumship, and so the proposed theme, the topic for today was to talk about mediumship in general, but also provide some context to maybe some facts, some things that are not real, right? And compare and contrast that, and also talk about some of the challenges associated with mediumship. And one of the things about mediumship is that it's still, for many of us, seen as something kind of supernatural, right? Something that is, we don't understand fully. So everything that we don't understand fully, we typically have a tendency to fill the gaps with imagination a little bit, right? And this is kind of part of, this is more like a humanity developmental process, but that obviously made its way through anything that is not easy to test or detect, like mediumship, for example, right? Which happens all the time, like every single time, every single day with all of us. But again, it's very easy, very difficult to characterize. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too, right? And then a little bit of what we learned from Kardec and Spiritism magazine, the Medium's book. Okay, so I'll try to make that big summary within our 45 minutes. Right? She's going to be reminding of it. We're all known for that. Okay, so in the Spirit's book, and I like to, I'm going to use a lot of quotes from the Medium's book today. In the Medium's book, Allan Kardec will start with this sentence, with this thought, right? Where we, and I'll just read directly from the quote, okay? So Allan Kardec says, we can deduce for ourselves the most favorable conditions for a society that aspires to attracting the sympathy of good spirits, right? Because that's really all we want, right? We're talking about mediumship. Our concept is that, well, if there's a way for me to communicate with some discarnated spirits, right? Like we communicate with each other here, but imagine that we can communicate with discarnated spirits. We definitely want to be communicating with spirits that are somehow vibrating like us or want to support us or, like in a positive way. That's what we have in mind, right? But that's not what happens all the time, right? Because we know that depending on how we're vibrating or we're thinking or the energy we're projecting around us, we're going to attract things that sometimes are not very positive, right? In other words, other spirits that are going through some hard times too, and they will grab hands with us and make even actually more difficult for us, right? But let's start with this. So let's think about what are the conditions, right, for this interaction to be favorable, right, for both of us, for all of us, right? It depends entirely. I want to say this word, right, because this is very critical. Depends entirely on the moral character of the participants in this communication. Bingo, right? So it doesn't matter how much we study about mediumship and how fancy we get in understanding fluids and energies and connections and all those things that people love to talk about in spiritism and makes us like jaw drop. What is the most important thing? Again, moral, right? The moral character of the individuals. So in a way, this is how I like to think about Spiritism. And, I haven't been studying Spiritism for a very long time, I have to say, several years now, but, it's not that I was born a fifth generation Spiritist, I actually had to kind of find it myself. Like I had to call and say, I gotta study this, right? And I started studying it as a septic, right? Because that I am, as most of you know by now, is like I'm a scientist, right, by training, right? So that's kind of how I approach things. And everywhere I read and go, in any story in the Spiritism, all of them circle back to exactly what Kardec's saying is here. What's the important thing? Why we're here and doing all this, right? Is it to, wow, I really know how this cosmic fluid science that we so much talk about, no one knows anything because it's impossible to determine, right? That's what's important. Not really. If I can right now call the attention of all my spiritual friends here and they want to make a demonstration of physical effect mediumship, and I'm going to make that chair move over there, everybody's going to be, wow, this is so incredible. It's not. It's literally just a chair moving. That's it. It's not an intelligent fact. It doesn't help anyone other than make everyone like, hearts. I can check my heart here. 189, made no difference in anyone's life, right? At the time of Kardec, it did though, right? But why? Why did it happen at that time when I don't see the chairs moving anymore? Everything has a role, right? When humanity discovered fire, how many people died by fire? Trying to play with it, losing control, burn their hands, right? It was a spectacle, right? You can make fire out of nothing, like pieces of wood, right? That are dry. We don't have to do that anymore, right? We can put things in a microwave and press a button, right? It's not that exciting, is it? We have a furnace. We go to our phone on our electronic thermostat and just flip a dial to 23 or 24 maybe, right? We don't care what's happening. The furnace turns the gas on, makes fire, turns it off by itself. This is not, but at the time, it was important, right? It was a critical step in development, right? So mediumship was the same. At the time, it was really critical for people to visually see this. Wow, that pen attached to that little thingy on the table that, can actually move by itself without anyone touching it and write a letter. Bingo. This hooked my attention. That's it. 99.99% of people will say, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm going to drink and do it every night. Just like, it's kind of fun, right? And then there's like the 0.001% of spirits, right, at that time, Kardec obviously leading the way. And I say, well, there's something here. I see an intelligent act here in this, right? So therefore, I'm going to study the intelligent effects of this particular episode, which we now call mediumship, right? And now, many years later, we're still talking about this, right? And we're still fascinated by, and we don't see that very often here in North America, but in other countries, like in Brazil, classically, right? Because it happens, there's a lot more spiritists there, there's a lot more tradition, there's many, decades of, work. You're going to have meetings of people with physical phenomena, like people who go to, it's like, oh, I'm going to go to that spiritist center because they do this really fancy kind of lights and stuff show, right? That still happens, right? People like that. They're attracted to it, right? But in most cases, that does not really address any of the real concerns we have today in our lives, right? So that's what Kardec's saying. In one sentence, to summarize all that, so the conditions depend entirely on the moral character of the participants and may be summed up by the following. Right? Easy. Let's sum it up. This is the end of the entire chapter, by the way. But perfect commonality of ideas and sentiments. That's one. Mutual benevolence among the members. Two. Rejection of every sentiment contrary to the true Christian charity. Wow. Okay. So basically, I can end my lecture right now, and we can all go home early, right? If we just listen to these three little things that Kardec puts together to us. And the most incredible thing that I find, not only spiritists, but every tradition that believes in spiritist communications, there's actually hundreds of them, right? We're not unique. We're not special. We're not like the anointed ones, like we used to. We have to have our plagues in the past of believing that we were not on spiritists, like about every religion, basically. We're the chosen ones, right? None of that is real, right? And Kardec puts to us like three things, right? We tend to ignore most of the time, right? So perfect commonality of ideas and sentiments. Okay. So not only ideas, huh? Sentiments to how you feel. Right? So think about it. It's like if you want to, I'll give examples, right? So if you're, let's say, if you're feeling down and something's happened to your life and you understand that you're depressed, that you have anxiety building in for issues that are going through in your life, right? Just picture that moment, how people generally feel when they're in that scenario, right? What ideas are going through their minds, right? And now think about it in the environments that individual is surrounded by spiritually. What spirits are going to be surrounding that individual? Think about it, right? So in general, the projection of those ideas and the thoughts, the sentiments around us, because they're real, like spirits can see what we think, right? They don't only feel like us. Like I can feel somebody's really, really sad sometimes. I can look at the person and feel the person's sad. Like we can do that. The spirits not only can do that, they can also see it and see exactly what we're thinking in real time, really, like the hologram around us, right? Can't hide it, right? So they're seeing that. So spirits that have that common sentiment will be attracted to that, and they will tend to be surrounded by that same energy, right? So that's why if you want to, that's the commonality of ideas and sentiments, right? And you see that quite often in clusters in the spiritual world, right? And that addresses other concerns we have about this phenomenon in the spiritual world. Like, we think about the Umbral and all this ugly places with volcanic ashes and fire. What is that? That is the common result of a group of spirits that are within that same vibration. They can actually project the entire environment around them. So does that exist for real? Is that real? No, it's not real in the sense that we believe, there's actually a volcano there, right? It is basically a final result of the thoughts, the environment that group of individuals that are thinking the same way are going to be clustered together, right? See how powerful that is. So for us, same idea. If we're very positive and thinking, sharing and doing good things and elevating our thoughts, we're going to be surrounded by spirits that usually have that same vibration, right? And that's critical for mediumistic meetings and communication interactions, right? Mutual benevolence, right? Now think about this, like mutual benevolence is critical, right? Because if you're going to a meeting or you're going to participate in some sort of mediumistic meeting, right, or group, right? And if the goal is not to be helpful and practice charity, both sides, so you can rest assured that the environment of that meeting is not very good, right? Because it's going to be attracting against spirits that don't have that same uh, interest, right? And the last one, which I think is the most important, rejection of every sentiment contrary to Christian charity. Okay, that's a big one. Right? So anything that against charity or loving action, right? That is not an easy one, right? Because you think about it, like, you know, we're not talking about the alter ego that we project to other people to pretend that we're really, really cool. We're talking about what really is like inside your real ego, with your real thought. So that one. So even if a slight thought that goes against charity can actually change, right? The way those interactions in the spiritual world and our world happen. Now, let me give you examples how that happened, like happen every day, right? Maybe not close to us here, but it happens every day, right? So, how many of you seen or groups, religions that would create this spectacle of that bring people to the front, right, to the stage, people that are technically being obsessed, right, or being influenced negatively by a group of spirits, and they'll do that, and they'll kind of make a show out of it so everybody can see it and cheer, get emotional, connect. Well, we see many religions do that, right? So think about what it is. So put those three things in context now, and try to picture that scenario, right? Is there mutual benevolence to all of them there? Maybe not. Are they rejecting every single sentiment contrary to charity? For example, exposing someone, right? That's already to start. That's contrary to charity, right? So it can never work. That's never positive. That's exactly what we're hearing about. The moral character of the people involved, right? What is the objective? What is the goal, right? In spiritual centers now, like how many meetings are designed to say, you know, let's go to this meeting that's, you know, for, I don't know, for physical effects meeting. Let's say, you know, someone's going to be like appearing, like a spirit will be showing itself to everyone. It happens, right? What is the goal of it, right? Is this for mutual benevolence of everyone? Does that make any difference if I see the spirit or not? Think about it. Like, this is a real question. Because a lot of us tend to believe that that's a lot more powerful if we see them, right? Not realizing that this room right now is filled with like 3 times more spirits than people right now. And we kind of, you know, not think about it, right? Because we don't see them. But they're here, right? Some of them are being helped. Some of them are just sitting and listening. Some of them are helping others. So there's groups of spirits that come and go and bring spirits in for treatment and in and out, right? There's actually like a lot of things happening in the background here we can't see, right? There's mentors here in the front helping out. There's people in the back there at the door helping people coming in. It's happening, right? We're kind of oblivious to it, right? If my mentor comes here and kind of like this little cloud of plum smoke shows up and say, whoa, I am the mentor of this, like, you know, but that's what we want, right? Which is kind of childish, right? But that's a good, I think that's a good setup to talk about mediumship, right? So we can end here. Thank you very much. You guys are about to go home. Okay, fine. Okay. So mediumship, like now, let's talk about mediumship in context, right? Because again, Spiritism was born out of mediumship and mediumistic interactions, right? Let's put it this way, right? It was like this perfect combination of a spirit, Kardec, who was prepared for it, who studied his whole life and evolved and was ready for it. He said, I'll take this role. This is my mission. He came here with the mission of putting all these things together and make something that we can learn from, right? That was his mission, right? You know, and every apostle, every, you know, saint, everyone has a mission, right? That was Kardec's mission. But you know, if you think of the any culture, like even way before Kardec, right? In Egypt, right, you have this magicians, the fortune tellers, right? That all those things are not new, right? It's well known that the pharaoh used to count on this mystic people that were able to give them some insight about the future. That happened, right? Um, Ancient China, in Italy, right? The oracles, right? And Romans, right? The oracles were exactly like a medium. Like you would go to like a room, a place, you kind of pay for it, but you would go there and say, you know, kind of tell me like your visions of the future. They'll say, oh, you know, I see that. And some of them were real because, you know, some spirits, they kind of have fun with that, right? They can see, for example, you know, they can see our thoughts and they can see the thoughts of people around us, and they know, for example, that, you know, Teresa might not be happy with me today, right? They can see it. And I'm sitting there in the oracle, they'll tell the oracle, yeah, Teresa doesn't like him, they're gonna fight. And then the oracle's gonna say, a good friend of yours is gonna fight with you. It's true, right? So they already know, right? There's nothing new about it. But it's impressive, right? Because it's like, oh my God, this is like, I don't know, some sort of, so this is not new, right? So in the Old Testament, right? The prophet Isaiah, right? Giving giving again context, future and predictions, right? That's well known. The philosophers, saints, like all of them, like saints that were presented in different places at the same time, right? So they have their physical body one place, their spiritual body, partially disconnected from their body, can show up in another place, right? That is mediumship of physical effects, right? Nothing unusual about it. We can actually densify our paraspiritual body to the point that it's visible like a real body, and people can interact with it, right? And talk to it, while actually my physical body is in a completely different location. So mediumship can explain that really well, but it's quite impressive, right? I have to admit, right? So this is not new, right? But Spiritism obviously bring this, the idea of the intelligent effect of mediumship to a whole new level, right? Which basically all we're reading here, almost all we read today, we read about the happy life and all that, came from understanding that we can have this positive, helpful, benevolent exchanges, right? That will help us, and we can help them too, because there are many spirits that are going through a hard time out there, and we see them in our mediumship meetings, right? We can help them, right? And in the same way, mentors can come to us and say, help us. So full cycle, right? We can all help each other, which is exactly what Kardec wrote, right? Pure principles of Christianity, right? Benevolence to all of us, right? That's exactly what the mediumship is supposed to be supported by, right? Now, what are the other questions we see all the time, right? So, are we all mediums? Yes, in different levels, obviously, right? It's a faculty. It's like a skill, right? That is trainable, right? You can improve it, you can develop it, right? And over many cycles of incarnations, right? You can actually develop quite well. And sometimes you were helped in achieving that because you have a specific mission. Right? So some spirits, for example, Chico Xavier, for example, they come with that mission, so they will receive, right? Not only they're prepared for it, and this is a fair and just thing for them, because nothing happens by chance, right? They'll receive the gift, they already have it prepared, they're ready for it, and when they come, they have it in a very exuberant pattern, right? That they can actually interact with the spiritual world like it is almost like the physical world for them. Right? That can happen too. Right? But it's not because we tend to think that mediums that have extensive, obviously mediumship, right, that you can see them interacting with the spiritual world all the time, are like this super gifted, anointed individuals. They're like this beam of light to shine in their head, and it's like Givaldo likes to say, they lose their hair, right? Because they're, you know, the spiritual energies are flowing so hard. This is funny thing. But you know, the reality is not, right? Most often, it's actually quite the opposite, right? It is actually a way they receive some kind of escape route to say, you know what, you're not doing well. You're in detention, like in the principal's office, right? You're learning this thing, I'm putting it into classroom, you make the same thing again, I put it back in detention, like it's not moving, and you're gonna be, held over in grade 1, this is, I give you an option, right? You can go to grade 2, but you're gonna have this particular tool here that you're gonna use it, right? The talent, remember the talent, the pyramid of talent? I'll give you 1 coin, I'll give you the mediumship coin, right? Make something out of it, right? Don't come back, you with the same coin, or hide your coin, right? Remember the talent? So they'll give you the mediumship and go, right? The individual comes, all to prepare itself, and there's schools for that in the spiritual world. And then they have that incredible opportunity, right? They're serving, right? It is a burden, like we know that. Because the mediumship, if it's not well understood, and if it's not well studied and prepared and used correctly, can be quite problematic. And we have so many stories. Like in my own family, that's exactly how I started to be spiritist, right? Because we had in our family a family member who had a natural, exuberant form of mediumship that it was labeled as a mental disorder, mental health disorder. That's exactly what happens. Because you're talking to someone, and in 10 seconds, they'll change to another person. They'll talk to you like an old male, and they'll have this very unusual conversation, like a different person, and then they'll flip back to who they are, like nothing happened, and you look at them, it's like, something I don't know here, right? I don't know what that is, right? And if you don't understand what mediumship is, then you obviously gonna say, well, this is personality disorder, this is stuff, whatever that is, or you're gonna call that schizophrenia, like you're gonna put a name on it, right? Because that's what our health system is designed to do, right? In those cases. And there's so many, like my family suffered for it for like probably about 5-6 years, until one day our mentors probably decided, let's help them out. And they sent this family of spiritists close to our family, and we got together, and they look at it like, oh my God, she's a medium. Like, what? What is that? Like, what are you talking about, right? And then obviously I am here. Like, that's kind of how it started. And then how my sister, and then, basically we realized there's a bunch of us in our family that the same thing, right? So, but you can see how that can be a problem, right? If you don't understand that. So, so the idea of mediumship is obviously for illumination, for humankind's progress, and that's all from Kardec, right? Develop virtues, right? To help others in both planes. There's many, many good things about it, right? But as any other talent, right? There's also the opposite options, right? Because we're free will, right? Can we use it in a negative way? Oh, boy, I see it all the time, right? And not the way we think. Like we think like using mediumship is a negative ways, like when I charge money to tell someone's future, that's like nothing. Like that's like peanuts, right? Yeah, it's not. Maybe you're gonna get communications that are really, really nasty, but there's not a lot. This is not that. This is a petty thing. It's not a big thing, right? It's right there, right? What about you coalescing thousands and thousands of people to believe in you, so you can manipulate an entire group of individuals? Well, mediumship can do that big time, right? We have so many examples, right? We have a very recent one that proposed incredible cures, right? Did that individual have a mediumship? Oh, I no doubt about it. The medium, right? Did he at some point have the ability to cure someone? Most likely. Like the ability of curing, the parenthesis here, is that helping someone who's ready to receive that particular gift, right? Yeah, he could help individuals who were ready to receive some sort of help in a health sense, right? Because miracles, cures the way we think, they actually don't exist, right? And I'll put a big parenthesis now, right? Let's go back to that. I like to talk about that because we see this every single day, people who wants to go to a mediumship or a spiritist center to be cured, right? In other words, to get rid, the sense of, I want to get rid of that disease, or get rid of that problem, right? Not understanding that will only happen if several things have been fulfilled. right? One, whatever debt or issue that you accumulated over time that's created that particular condition is already resolved, or you already attenuated it enough that it can be helped, and you're ready to move on and receive the gift. First, right? Second is, it's not going to affect your ability to continue your progress in this. In other words, if you're receiving that particular scenario because you're using it to boost your moral development because of what you've done in the past, whatever happened in the past, then obviously your mentors will look at it as, well, if I take this away now, they're not ready, they're actually going to fall back into the same issues that brought them here. So you're going to go into this cycle, right? If that's happening, then you're not going to receive anything. Are you going to be helped? Yes, you're always helped. We're always helped. We're going to be helped, attenuated, we can help coping, we can help dealing with that. There's a million ways of being helped. But removing the disease is not one. Because the disease, 99.99%, is actually the cure itself that you're experiencing in real time. But it's painful. It's horrible, I understand. But that is exactly what we're going to bring you from here to the next step, the vast majority of us, right? So when you go to Spiritism Center to actually get that away from you, that's your objective, be careful. That's a trap, right? Because that's most likely not going to happen. But if you go there understanding that, well, I'm going to be helped somehow, and I'm open-minded about it, and we'll see what happens, then yeah, you're going to be helped, and you're going to be great things out of it, right? Sometimes the disease disappears. Yes, sometimes it does, because that was exactly the right scenario for it. Like you're ready for it, deserved it. And then a medium of abilities of cure, they can actually facilitate that. Yes, so that can happen. You can have this amazing cures, right? In certain individuals, right? So yes, so now finishing the parenthesis, now going back to the story. So we are well known in Brazil, a very well known individual that at some point may have had the ability of mediumship of cure, of helping other people, then all of a sudden starts to deviate from its route, right? And go into this very, very dark place, right? Where he was able to abuse other people sexually, right? Using for it the power of his own mediumship that he received as a gift. It happened. It happened. Dozens and dozens of people have been abused by him, right? So this is to show how, this ability that we receive can quickly turn, right? It depends on the moral, right? Remember that's what's correct, right? We have the example of Chico and Valdo, for example. And I like to bring that example because that's a great illustration of like what we're talking about, right? So we have two individuals that came with almost identical missions, two spirits, prepared themselves for that. And here they are. They were so much in tune, they could write a book alternating chapters. Think about that. So a spirit will dictate, will dictate one chapter to Valdo, then the next chapter to Chico. And then they'll put it all together. So you see alternating chapters, different two mediums, working in tune in sync, right? Right. And then at some point in time, one of those individuals will say, all I want to do is like my humble life. I'm the tiniest of all. I'm just going to help people. I'll donate my life to this. And then he'll continue just doing whatever he was doing in his house and the meetings and going places and helping people and writing books. And the other individual say, you know what, we can do more than this. Right? This is not all, like there's more, and I want to be more, and I want to grow, and I want to be that. See, that sentiment alone turned him into some sort of self-cult. Like if you look at Valdo's later years, you can see that he transformed himself in an image of a wizard, right? It was like a wizard, right? He would have this almost like cold-like figure, right? That people will come, and that you can see how that again deviated, right, from some of the principles of charity and the moral principles that we talked about. So there's many examples of this. So mediumship can actually be, used in a very, very negative right? And every religion has done this, right? Not only I saw Spiritism, these are examples in Spiritism, but that can happen in many levels in many religions, right? So that's quite important, okay? Now, other things there, and I'm just going to go by like these interesting questions that we have about the issue, right? The concept of possession, right? And we're traumatized by it, right? Because, I'll give you an example. So there was one day, we're on a family trip in, I remember this very well, Porto Seguro, Bali. And we're in a hotel, and we're all preparing, and our whole family there, and we're all preparing to go to the beach, and everyone's kind of having fun. I was young at the time, still young. So we're all preparing to go, and then one of my family members basically stood up and said, we're not going, with another voice, like a male voice, basically, we're not going. This is like, we're all going to stay here, and then this whole thing continues, right? So and then this particular individual became another person, right? So we were actually talking to this, let's say, middle-aged man, right, with a very deep tone of voice and very angry, right? And then all of a sudden, obviously the spirit, right, communicating through her, right? All of a sudden, the spirit says, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna get out of here. And literally, folks out of the hotel, right? And we're looking at each other. And at the time, obviously, we're not really knowing exactly what's happening, but we kind of got a sense already what was happening. And then we all look at each other. My mom looked at me like, I think we got to do something about this, right? Yeah, let's do this. So we walk on the street, like kind of chasing the spirit now, which is communicating, through her. And it was like the most incredible scene because, I'm talking to this man, and it was my sister, right? So, and I was having this thing in my mind, like, what am I doing? Like, and I'm thinking people looking at us like yeah, there's something going on here, right? But at that time, the connection between my sister and that spirit was so intense that the spirit had actually physical control of some parts of her body, right? So she could walk and say things and do things and behave exactly like an older person, right? All of it, the way the hands move and the body position and all of it, 100%, right? So this is an example of what people call possession, right? It's almost like that obsession is so intense, it's so tight, right? The level of connection of those two spirits is so tight that they almost get like full control of the physical body, right? But she's still there though. That's why people kind of miss the point, right? But she's still there and she has full control of it, right? And she's allowing that connection to, of course, she was not trained at that time, so she will completely allow that to happen, right? And as Kardec explains, like a spirit does not enter a body. Like it's not that the spirit is inside the body, right? Instead, it associates with the same defects and qualities that they both conjointly possess. So because they were vibrating so intensely tight, both of them, right? They were able to. She basically lost complete control, right, of that ability to control that, right? And the Kardec continues in chapter 23 that the word obsession is a generic term used to designate this kind of phenomenon, whose main varieties are the simple, right, which happens all the time to all of us, fascination and subjugation. Subjugation will be the one that I saw have the example that I'm telling you. And the funniest thing is that at the time, obviously, I didn't know I was meaning to at the time, right? But I'll tell another lecture. That's sort of how I figured that out. But and then we're all Catholic Christians, right? So we're all, like very, going to the church every Sunday and all that. And I still have, thank you for the Catholic Church for actually bringing me here, because otherwise I would not even know about Jesus. So thank you. So people like to complain about other views all the time, right? I thank them a lot, right? Because all I learned about Jesus, like to that point, right, was through them. So thank you for that. Otherwise, it would be 10 times worse, right? So then we were finally able to stop her, like in this corner, in like the super busy street market. I can remember that in Portugal. and all these vendors and people walking out. And then the spirit turns to us, me and my mother, and they start yelling incomprehensible things. And then we started praying. It's like, you know what, let's pray. It's like, yeah, let's pray. Let's start praying. So we start praying, and then the spirit is yelling at us in the corner of the street, like really yelling, like not saying, you know. And then everybody starts to turn like this, like, something happening. It's like some sort of spectacle, right? And we continue doing, and then at some point, I think I kind of remember kind of me, myself, kind of disconnecting from the environment. And then I went back to myself, and then she was back. And like, I don't know what happened here, but listen, my sister's back, I'm back, and my mom's looking at both of us, and I was like, now things are really, really out of control. Like, this is like, anyway, so this is kind of how we started into mediumship, so you can get an idea of how things can get really messy, right? Particularly if you're looking at the outside. I still have kind of thoughts about people who look at it, both of us now, right? Realizing like, yeah, this is like, should we call police or something? I don't know. But anyways, it went all perfectly. Like, she was completely back to normal. I was back to normal. And then we had a great day in the beach after that, and it was all good, right? And then about a week after that, we started going to Spirit Center, and then, yeah, and then she had full control. Like, she served, like, she worked in Spirit Center for so many years. And then I was more stubborn and didn't want to do it. And then I got the call here, and this is a different story. But anyway, but just to give you a sense of how the process occurs, right? You know, we do have a whole book about it, which I think is a great book if you have a chance, by Adele. It's called The Messengers, right? So The Messengers talks about, tells a story about multiple failed mediums, like mediums that had chances and prepared themselves in the university in the spiritual world. So, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to work in this. And we're not talking about only more extensive, exuberant types of mediumship. We're talking about day-to-day things, right? Because when we say mediumship, most of us will think about the one that comes here in Spiritism Center. It's like psychophony, psychographing, and all of that. But all of us here, in all our daily activities, right, are influenced by spirits. So that by itself is a mediumistic interaction, right? In different levels. Like, it could be a thought that comes to your mind out of nowhere, right? Your work is like, I have this thought, it's kind of strange. So when you have that thought, maybe you should kind of turn around and think then, because there may be someone, or if it's not a good thought, it's like, hey, bud, you need help too. I can feel it. I just heard you, right? You need help, right? Don't do it out loud, because people can think that, it's like my scenario in Puerto Rico. So but in your mind, you can do that, because it is mediumship. It's normal. It's natural. You can't get rid of it. Like, even if you try, it's like, I'm going to shut my doors now. It's like, I'm going to do this thing in the morning. I'm going to close everything. There's people that for internet, people try to do that. I'm going to do all these passes and things that are shut my cores and stuff. The spirits are probably laughing like, look at that guy, right? Look at that guy. I'm going to, wait, right? It's going to happen, right? I can see them too sometimes just laughing at us, like trying to do things. But, it is an interesting book, because it talks about the importance of, again, going back to Kardec, the moral essence of the individual, and how that when we work in our inner transformation, we can serve and do more and do better in every sense, including leadership. Right? Now, let me give you another example, right? So every time you pray, right, you do establish a connection, right, with whoever that is. It's capturing the energy that you're sending through your prayer. That can also be a little bit of a communication, right? It's not that you do an intention, I'm going to do it now because I'm going to talk to Spirit. No, of course not, right? You just pray. But, every time you pray, you change your vibration, you change your energy, your thoughts, you elevate your thoughts, and you will therefore attract, spirits that are connected to that. So that in itself is a very, very subtle type of interaction, right, with the spiritual world. And we do it all the time, right? Why am I saying this? Because when you're really upset about something, right, you're also doing the same thing, right? And it could be anything. It could be like, nowadays, like you turn on the TV, like you put in the first channel, disaster happens. Next channel, oh, the worm. The next channel, oh my God, that one. Like, you get embedded into it. Be careful, right? Because of course we have to see the news, we have to watch the news, we have to understand what's happening, we have to share all our good vibrations to people who are suffering, but you cannot feel the same energy that whoever's attacking whoever is feeling. That is a bad connection. Don't do it, right? Because if you catch yourself judging what you're seeing and immediately attacking one of the sides, like relentlessly in your mind, I can guarantee you there's like probably hundreds of thousands of spirits around us that want exactly what they want, right? And they'll be all over you, right? With that same energy. It's going to be harder and harder for you to get rid of that thought. You could be with another person, right? A coworker, or someone that having a hard time, right? And I've learned that myself through many head-on collisions with against the wall, like banging against the wall literally, because I realized that the more the thought of another person doing something that I considered bad to me came to my mind, the more I felt stress. My heart rate goes up. Like I can feel completely embedded into that energy. Stop it. Really, stop it. What you don't realize is that if you step away in that moment and look at yourself from a spiritual perspective, you're a whole mess. You're like worse than the person that's actually creating a problem. The person that's creating a problem is probably like I don't care. They do it because it's natural to them to do it. They're not thinking about it. You're the one that's actually accumulating all that negative energy about the whole thing. And you feed into the same process. So it's a completely chaotic scene from the spiritual world. And therefore, the interaction with the spiritual world will be matching that particular chaos that you're creating in your mind. So watch out for us, right? That's very important, right? In the practice of mediumship, which is the final thing we're going to mention today, this is kind of what happens in the Spirit Center, right? In the book, in the medium's book, there's some guidelines that Allan Kardec, and I'm not going to read all of them, but I'll read a couple that are very important, right? So, instructive meetings, which are the ones that happen here at the Spirit Center, are entirely different from any other meetings, right? Because they're the only ones that can obtain real teaching. So why Kardec saying that? Because nowadays, even in Spiritism, I'll be very clear about this, there are people in Spiritism today that are advocating that we actually should start talking to spirits all the time, because why not? They're friends, Like, you can look at, I'm not going to cite names, but you can look at YouTube if you want. They're going to say, yeah, when you're having a hard time, just chill out in your balcony and start talking to your spiritual friends about your problems. I'm like really? What exactly, to see the benevolence to both and support for both, do you think at that moment with that particular, kind of question about your work-life balance kind of thing, do you think any really well-evolved spirits will come down to you just because of that and say, yeah, friend, I'm here to help you all the time? No, definitely not, right? So what you're going to attract for sure is spirits that are either want to make fun of you or they're in the same boat as you. So I don't think you're going to have a lot of help as you think. And you're going to open yourself up to a huge amount of influence. So, instructive meetings require a completely different setup environment. So a meeting is a collective being. So whose qualities and properties are the sum of all its members, right? That's why in Spiritism, there's a huge preparation we do to have a meeting, right? So we're sure that we're protected. We're sure that we're going to receive communications that are positive, that are real, right? And even in that setting, sometimes it doesn't work. Like it happened in Spirit Center, like that's a book, right? You can read about it. It all happened in Spirit Center. We'll tell you all of it. How the spirits can actually influence the meeting right here. Inside those walls, with all preparation, with all the study, everybody knows about it, by fascinating people, right? By making people think that they're really better than what they are. Right? And that creates a huge problem, right? So, in the book, It All Happened in Spirit Center. I mean, I highly recommend if you want to understand a little bit more about leadership inside Spirit Center. there's one part that it says, and I like to say that quite often, that it says, it will take firmness and vigilance in prayer. So many people will bring praise. Let's say, one of the most serious obstacles in leadership. Always avoid them. If you can't, report the merits to the Creator, containing yourself only with encouraging the continuation of the task. And Shikushagara is a great example of this, right? He never have ever think anything about Shiku that'll say that they'll come and bring praise to him and say, oh, thank you, so good. No, he'll be the opposite. No, thank the God there, not me. I'm just like, I'm just kind of the worker here helping out. And look at that spirit. It's like such a devout spirit, right? So we have to be careful, even in Spiritism Center, to avoid that over-praising, right? It's like, oh my God, Mark was so good. He did like this lecture and he sees the Spiritism Center, he sees spirits. Oh. Like, no, please don't, right? I'm here because I messed up a lot in the past. And I don't need that because I don't want to go into that same mistake that I've done probably hundreds of incarnations before, okay? And I'm going to end with something that kind of relates to this, right? And this is straight out of the Medium book. And it's called Fanatical Spiritists, right? What are they? Right? We have to be careful because we don't want to be a fanatic, right? Spiritist. But that again happens quite often. Like in Spiritism today, and that's something we have to be very careful. You start to look at some individuals who came with an incredible gift. The gift of oratory, like lecture, right? The gift of memory, like memorizing huge passages and information that it can deliver beautifully. That's very, can be very touching, very connecting, right? You have spirits that come with missions of mediumship, right? They have incredible abilities, and all so forth and so on, right? And that will eventually bring a number of other spirits, like us, for example, that will actually start to create a problem. They will create this fanaticism, right? Or like creating the image that someone is really like a leader. Or I follow this person instead of I follow Jesus, right? That happens, right? And that is a very subtle line that we have to kind of go through, right? In every religion, but in Spiritism particularly. So Kardec told us this, and I was going to read exactly what he wrote in the Medium's book, right? Finally, there are fanatical spiritists. The human species will be perfect if it always preferred the good side. Exaggeration in many ways harmful. And in Spiritism, it produces a blind and often childish confidence in the manifestations of the visible world. This is why so many mediums fail. If you read the Messengers, you understand that, right? Because when someone comes, is it through mediumship, through communication, or through oratory, right? I would say Spiritism and other people start to say, well, this guy, he's so good. I'll just listen to him now. Like I'm not going to read a book. It's too much work, right? I'm not going to understand what's happening. I'm just going to go log in Facebook, get a sign, like I'm going to check, like I want to see what someone posts, whatever. And I'm just going to listen to this person every day. And then that's kind of, and then you say, oh my God, this guy, and you tell me, oh, this guy, like I follow him or her, right? And that's all I do. I'm Spiritist, and I follow this person. So what is the trap you're creating, right? If that particular individual is influenced, right, by the spiritual world and starts to, deviate from its route, and we've seen this everywhere in every religion, every time, then all of a sudden the mass of people that are following him fall in the same trap. So we're all going to be collected in the same place, right? And we forget about this, right? Which is always our secure and safe baseline, right? So and I'll continue, leading some very easily and uncontrollably to accept what reflection and examination would show the absurd or impossible. Fanaticism does not think, it dazzles. These adherents are more noxious than useful to Spiritism. They are less capable of being convincing, since their judgment is rightly distrusted. They're easily fooled by fraudulent spirits, by persons who try to exploit their gullibility. Right? If they were the only ones who had to suffer the consequences, the harm would not be so great. But the worst outcome is that, without meaning to do so, they provide disbelievers, right, with more reasons to ridicule Spiritism than to convince by it. and they do not fail to have more reasons to all the foolishness of the few. Obviously, this is neither fair nor rational, but it is well known that Spiritism adversaries only recognize their own reason as genuine and care little about fully understanding the objective of their consideration. So this is the warning I want to leave you today, because going back to my first slide, to my first comment, is that if everything we do in Spiritism, where does it lead back to? The moral principle, right? Who we are in the evolution of the moral world, right? Us individuals. It's not about how nice and fancy someone talks. It's not about how beautiful the spirit showing up itself and moving or making a water changing color. Like those are tiny little details in Spiritism, right? The real big deal is that what are we doing to be better? What? When was the last time we really did something like to someone, like to help, by thought, by action? When was the last time I thought about the issues that I had and how to approach them, how to change them? When was the last time that, I was able to get rid of all that negative energy that I had against someone that's affecting them every day? Because don't think that when you project that negative thought, when you send that email, like this angry email and he answers, that goes with a load attached to it. It's not an attachment, it's not a picture inside of that, but it's horrible. Like it's your energy that goes with it. And it's so interesting that the other person knows. You can write that same email with a different vibration, different context. The other person will look and say, no, okay. But when you're angry, you're gonna write that email, you're gonna hit send. The other person will read and say, that person, so mean, I hate this person. Why? Because you're sending away that load, right? Together with the message, with the words, right? So when was the last time that you had a moment to say, stop, I'm not gonna do this? When was the last time that someone offended you and you stopped and say, no, we're right? It's fine. You're this, you're that. It's like, I'm you're right. I'm wrong. When was the last time you did that? Right? This is Spiritism. Like, it's great. Like, we need to know all of this. It's awesome. But it all kind of reverts back to the basics, right? Reverts back to this, right? No matter how fancy the lecture you see on the internet is about this incredible commotion and, oh my God, this good vibration and I love this guy, but don't forget this, right? Otherwise, we're going to be trapped in the same mistakes of the past, okay? Thank you.
Any comments or any questions, anything from the internet, Denise?
Yeah, we have a comment here from Janet. So Janet lived in Brazil for a while. She developed her mediumship there, was helping everybody, and then she moved here. She is a housekeeper and lives with a family right now away from Toronto, so she can't come and be here with us. So she thinks in her heart that like there is a purpose of her being there because she needs to help that family. But at the same time, she feels kind of like confusing, in doubt, and feeling a bit sad, for not, I think, and Janet, please correct me if I'm wrong, how can I say, not using her membership, her mediumship the way she used. Oh, no, helping more, because she used to visit sick kids, and do more an extensive help to others.
Right. So that's a great question. And I'll start by saying that, the way we employ and use our mediumship, it varies dramatically from every person's scenario, where we are in the world. And, so what I'm trying to say is that, yes, so helping in a spiritual center or in a place where you can actually practice more extensively mediumship, that's great, right? But there are a million other ways we can help, right? It does not require us to give complete passage, right, to another spirit to do something, right? That is just like a 1% of what mediumship is, right? So, practicing, so going back to the basics, so practice charity. And, open, like, if you're a medium, like, really, and you really understand and you know when the communication is happening, you're always gonna get influence, right? It happens, like, it happens to us all the time. Like, you know when something's happening, you feel the energy or something. You can do that with full control, without actually giving full control. Like, you can understand that, and that is fine. Like, you can receive those tips and helps, like, to help anyone, right? Without having to commit to giving passage to another spirit, right? That is critical, right? Because that makes a big difference whether you're here or whether you're somewhere else. So, Jenna, for you, basically, I would say, there's a million ways we can help. We don't know where we send to and what is our role in where we are. We can always find ways to be helpful, and it doesn't matter how or when you do it or how you do it. If you're doing it in the right, it's positive, we'll take that, right? And I would say explore ways, continue exploring the ways that you can help. It doesn't mean that because you're not giving passage or mediumship, you're not doing it through potential. That is not true, right? That's pretty much it. Okay.
Thank
That's
you,
very
Mark.
true. And she has a feeling in some ways, just like she said, I know I'm there and I can help this family,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So instinctively, your mediumship is telling you that you are where you should be.
Yeah.
We all are where we should be.
You never know. At some point, it's going to change, and she'll
Yeah.
be here, and things are so fluid, right? So
Yeah.
You're giving the lecture now at the end. Remind me something. What we're talking about is to have more. We give more importance to the mediumship, the effect itself, than the moral, right? And Chief Xavier once said many people come to me asking, how can I become a medium? How can I develop my mediumship? He says, but it's very rare that someone comes to me and asks, how can I develop my goodwill? Right? So everybody wants the effect, you want to be, as if being a medium is easy, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're special because you're medium, like, not really, you're just working extra, way extra. But nobody wants to develop the goodwill. And we see this in the Spirit Center. We had this conversation before with the Spirit Centers from here. There's people in the conversation from the States, from Brazil, from Spiritist groups in Europe, and we all exchanging messages and talking. And it's the same thing across the board. The days of the medium, the house has the mediumship, because some actually in Brazil, some mediumship groups is open to the public.
Yeah.
Which is kind of irresponsible, but it is. Each one has their own way of doing it. Or it's the day they have the passes, or it's the day that you have the mediumship, or the cure day. Then the house is packed. The days that you have the study of the books, Gospel According to the Spiritism, which is the moral base of Kardec's books, it's empty. TSS is not different. Right? Wednesdays we study the Gospel, we study the Spirit's book, it's empty. Right? But so that's why people still looking for the one thing that will heal or resolve my issues. But the ones that's really going to resolve is when we do the moral transformation, right? Because that's the key, and that is Spiritism, right? Like I said, the mediumistic part is a small percentage of it. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Mark. All right, thank you everyone who was with us over the internet. We're hoping to see you back here next Sunday for your next lecture, which is actually our last lecture of the year. Just so we go over the internet. Next Sunday is our last lecture. I'm not quite sure when we're coming back, but please look for, hopefully by next Sunday we can give you guys some news of when we're back. Okay, thank you.